Hello and welcome to the Rise Above the Grind podcast. I am your hostess, Alissa Bickar, the consultress, bringing you amazing conversations and insights from the front lines of innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment. I bring conversations to light here for people that are making moves and making the world a better place because we live in the age of disruption where nothing's going back to normal and everything is up for review. So today I have our guest, Jacob McGill, here with me, 80/20 Media. He helps build smart systems to help people innovate and iterate real time to do things at scale and at speed. So you're really going to want to listen and pay attention to how he defines the grind and what that means in today's culture. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me here.
It is a gift and a pleasure, my man. I am so looking forward to this. So in your world, in your experience of life, how do you define the term grind?
You know, I've lived through a bunch of different versions of it, but honestly, it's something that I've always worked to not engage with.
Hmm. Say more.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the preamble, I'm a one percenter. That comes from my background in clinical rehabilitation. I ran a rehab practice for over 25 years, and there's this amazing statistic out there that 98% of pain is the site of a compensation pattern. Now, that's true in anatomy, it's true in structure, it's true in business as well. So only 1% of the time do you have an actual injury where the pain's at the site of the problem. And that's called a catastrophic failure. And I got to experience that when I was 17 years old. I died in the ditch in a car accident and got airlifted to ICU. My situation was such that they had to cut into my body to give me an IV because my veins had collapsed. And when that happens to you before you graduate high school, it kind of changes your focus. So for a number of reasons, very obvious ones, I spent pretty much the decade of my 20s while, finished high school, went to pursue my music degree, and while doing that, started learning about health and well-being. And I spent the next 10 years getting my 10,000 hours. So I went through my first version of the grind, honestly, in the beginning with the best of intentions, and in the end, almost as a form of addiction, where like at a certain point in time, friends and family were turning to me and they're like, you can stop taking courses now. You can stop apprenticing. You can stop learning. You should start practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I really went out on my own, opened my own clinic, and started a clinical rehab practice where I hit, let's say, grind 2.0. I had a 3-month wait list for the last 3 years I was in business. And that wait list was a thing that I thought I wanted to achieve as a matter of success, but how I went around getting it was getting doctors as clients and having insurance companies and lawyers sending me clients and funding them. And I had gotten these really weird situations where my job is pain relief, but we'd be having these discussions and they'd say, well, I can't get better. I've got my court date in 18 months.
Oh.
I got to go in there looking terrible to get my check. And so I realized that the constructs of the system I was inside were actually working against me with the goals that I had.
Hmm. Very often I find that our context does define how we view ourselves, and it's not always a fit. I talk a lot about the industrial age mindset of we're a cog in a machine that continues to run at predictability, but it's not necessarily life and the way that life runs and the way that innovation happens. The industrial age is
Mhm.
built so that innovation does not happen. It's systematization at cost of everything else. And I love what you're saying about how the system you're in for pain relief, people were not looking for the actual result. They were looking for validation that the pain was real. Does that sound accurate?
To a certain degree. And then a lot of it actually has to do with the differences between the way the brain, the body, and the mind function.
Hmm.
And like we could spend the whole rest of this call and probably 10 more hours
Yeah,
philosophizing about how that stuff works.
right.
But what's most interesting to me is the neurological side of it. Like we have 9.5 nervous systems. They evolved over a completely different era of time. And each one of them is trying to do its job. And those jobs, like the industrial stuff you're talking about, can end up working against each other.
Okay.
Right. I had a friend who was an engineer and he built a program and a practice where he just went in because inside of a factory, there'd be all these legacy systems, all these different pieces of equipment that were built, installed, and constructed at different times. All he'd do is get them to work together. And like productivity would go through the roof because nobody had ever thought that this thing that was 15 years old and this thing that was 7 years old and were manufactured in two different sides of the planet had to work together.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just as common in people stuff as well.
So this is interesting. So the term grind always brings up such interesting dialogue on this show because no two definitions are alike, yet it's the same word. And we have many people listening and interpreting that word for themselves. And here we have systems that work against each other, creating resistance and discord inside of the human, inside of the business, inside of your ecosystem, whatever that looks like. And so it sounds to me like you're defining grind in a way that is like almost like physics having two opposing opposite uh masses at not at rest, and when they meet together they collide. So grind sounds like you're working against yourself and you're not seeing progress, or you're not seeing the result you think you want, or maybe you're aligned in a different way. So can you now like share with us a system that is not grindy? Because you said version 1.0, version 2.0, what does it look like to transcend that kind of head to head grinded out mentality or systems butting up against each other?
Yeah. Well, again, I started my business over this business, like 80/20 Media, over 15 years ago. And thanks to all that training I got and the way I just naturally work, I think in systems and process. Right. It's just how I operate. And so to oversimplify your definition, it's friction.
Hmm.
And it's friction that doesn't have to be there. Like if we go back to the rehab stuff for a second, there's a rule. Open the joints. Why? Then you can align the structure. Why? Because then you can strengthen. If you strengthen before that, it's just stupid. You're literally grinding. You'll put weight on tissue that's not meant to load weight like cartilage, right? And people don't have it. It's because you ground it away.
Mm.
And so this shows up in business and in life. And now that I grow businesses for a living, we put in systems and operations. What I find is a lot of people who are in their business, they just have Stockholm syndrome. Like, why are you doing that way? Because it's the way we do it. Is there a better way? Don't talk to me about that.
Woo! Okay, so you're describing every pivot I've ever had.
Yeah,
Oh, fine, I'll look at it, but I don't wanna, and I don't have to like it.
yeah. And so we actually use a model that's based on these natural principles. It's called the regenerative business model because nature actually works in a completely different manner, right? And again, some of the stuff you said earlier, we tend to work against it or away from it instead of accepting it, which makes no sense. But it's the same reason I have a challenge going to the gym sometimes, because I'll walk in there and I'll see bad position, heavily weight loaded. And I almost feel obligated to walk over and be like, if you don't stop that now, 3 to 5 years from now, it's going to be this big of a problem and not enough camera angle to tell you how expensive it'll be to fix.
Yeah. Right on. And that I see you, and I'll raise you one glass because that's why my husband got back into the gym. He's like, I need to have a trainer with me because I
Yeah.
know that left to my own devices, I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to injure myself even more. And the resistance he was feeling of not getting back to the gym was that he didn't want to hurt himself more. And, so I mean, I'll ask you offline because my main jam is to go dancing and also to swim. So I feel like there's
Mhm.
a wrong way to do that as long as you're paying attention to how it feels. But you're what I'm hearing from you is there probably is something I need to be paying attention to. Because you're right. I had my kids and then I went back to Zumba and then it felt like my left leg wouldn't work for me anymore. Like my adductor tendon wasn't working properly because my hips changed space.
Mhm.
My muscles were willing to do something that my mind thought I could do, but they were like, we need something. We need more support. We need more strength. We need more structure. And me swinging my hips around like I was 18 again did not fit the bill. So, um, thank you for your insight as far as like the body and business and how that all relates. Because I'm a big believer that everything is interconnected. And so part of the purpose of having these conversations is to see, great, we know this now. We see how things are butting up against each other and the opportunity we have to do something differently. How do you pay it forward in your business as 80/20 media to help kind of unlock people's joints and get them doing what they need to do in their business more effectively with better strength?
Yeah, every single level that we have is a pay it forward model, right? From the free stuff or a consultation right into our B2B services, right? And as much as they do start with a free call and that kind of stuff, when we scope a blueprint, like 10x and 100x is written all over it, right? So we'll go into a business and we focus on companies that we can have the greatest amount of impact in. So by putting in revenue architecture, by putting in revenue operations, we can lift a company to 10 million or add 10 million. We can do that with our eyes closed, with if they're aligned with us. But the blueprint is a $10,000 process where we'll define over $100,000 of revenue leaks. So you can walk away with a 10x benefit just from that information and never do business with us. And then from there, we actually do proposals for build with select businesses, and we build in 2 90-day periods. Pay it forward again. The first 90-day build will pay for all of year one. And then the second 90 days, now that we've got that little bit of trust and like, hey, you can breathe, you can think, you've got some processes and systems running, then we can start working on the stuff that really matters,
Hmm.
right? But it's a really big differential. It's back to that 98% rule that I gave you there, because people will come in and they'll say my back hurts, and they're like, okay, wow, through the last hour we've gone through a 15-year history and you've never injured your back, right? Why? It's compensation. And this is the exact same thing in the business space, right? They come through the door and they'll be like, this is the biggest problem in my business right now. It's like, I understand that that's where it hurts the most today. But there are 19 other problems underneath all of this inside of your business. And if you want them solved so that your business can actually grow, we're going to have to deal with them. But of course, you want to address where they feel the pain is on the surface. And
Yep.
so it's really all about that, really thinking your way through it, deploying things that actually functionally solve the problem. And then you can get their attention on working on the source of the problem.
I think I get it, and let me just see and reflect to you back because I'm this conversation is like we're fishing in Atlantis. It is so deep. Um, you address their immediate concerns because that's where they're feeling the pain. That's where the business is feeling the crunch, whether it's in their operations, in their marketing, or in their client outreach and communication programs. So you help them to address the thing they're in pain with first. You meet them where they are. And then from there, you're able to build trust and rapport and build out systems that can get to the root issue of why that pain exists and build the depth with them. That sounds to me like business of the future. That sounds to me like business of collaboration, connection, and communication, which is what my philosophy and business is all about. Collaboration over competition every time. And I feel
Mhm.
like when people feel heard and they feel seen, whether they're saying, hey, I do have pain here, acknowledging, yes, that's the pain, that's where it is, gives them the comfort and the trust to be able to have you lead them. So it's really a leadership role that I feel like you're taking and you're walking people through pay it forward mindset wise. Here's where we're meeting you where you are, giving you information for you. Then we'll be able to walk you through a deeper process to create 10x or 100x results from the blueprint up front. Like that's worth its weight in gold. So this is just a snippet of the conversation where Jacob, I know you serve from a very full cup. Where can people go to find you if they want to reach out or connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, we're just 80/20 dot media. We grab the URL, put it into like it's right in the paper of our incorporation. And so that made it super easy from the beginning. It's always stayed the same. And that's an easy place to find us. If you want to speak to me directly, grow.8020.media will get you into my calendar. And yeah, from there, it's really understanding that it's the first step of a process.
Beautiful. And the journey of a million miles starts with the first freaking step. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here on Rise Above the Grind. This is one way to start thinking differently and putting new thoughts and processes into action in your life and in your business. If you are here listening on the broadcast, stay tuned. Don't go away. We have another amazing guest, just like Jacob, lined up here for you to listen to. Don't go away.